a lot of the traditional styles are lost, and especially with Tai Chi being internal, it's a little
Right.
more difficult to accomplish, so it's very hard to get it. That's the one thing about Tai Chi. It's not something that you just go there, you practice the applications, or you do training where you get strong. So it takes more time. So it's less people can actually reach to the point where they can preserve the art. Yeah.
Yeah. That preservation is a difficult thing, especially in China after the Cultural Revolution, and then the advent of Wushu, and then the shortened forms that were made mandatory. It's kind of like a lot in all the Kung Fu is a lot of the arts moved, the masters moved to Southeast Asia, Taiwan, other places to get away. So it's
Yeah, I think the like you said, the wushu has a big influence. They focus more on just the look, the beauty of the form, which is good too. They look very nice, but to me, traditional art has more energy, and there's more to it than just move beautifully. Yeah.
Sifu Alex Dong, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Nice to see you here.
Most people know about, Yang style, Chen style, Wu styles, even Sun style, but the Dong family style is not as widely known. So I'm very interested to kind of dig into some questions
Yeah.
um, about the style itself. And before we get into like training and development questions, I'd like to begin with some lineage context, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
your grandfather is
My grandfather's Dong Huling.
Dong Huling.
Yeah. And my great grandfather is Dong Yingjie.
Was your grandfather, your great grandfather, a disciple of Yang Chengfu?
My great grandfather.
Your great
So he
grandfather.
was, yeah, he was the first generation in our family. I'm the fourth generation. Yeah.
Wow. So at what age do you know that he began and what year ish with Yang Chengfu?
Um, I'm just I don't remember the
Guesstimate.
exact year, probably in his 20s.
1920s?
No, in his
Oh, in
20s.
his 20s.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just reading a book to my son about his story. I haven't got to that part yet. I know he started to practice martial art as a teenager, but started with the external styles first. And
Yeah.
then he trained in house style Tai Chi in our area from a famous master. And then from there, he transitioned to the Yang style in Beijing.
When you say my area, what part of China are you referring to?
We're about 200 miles southeast of Beijing, southwest, a little bit inland.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a small town called Renxian.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's where it's very close to where the Yang family originated, Handan. And there's a lot of martial art in that area. It's close to, it's next to Henan, the Shaolin
Hmm.
Temple and the Chinese village. Yeah, it's a very centralized area for martial arts. Very
Yeah.
popular, all different styles. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Chen and the Yang families are quite famous for Tai Chi, of course.
Yes.
You know.
Mhm.
Now, your great grandfather was a student of Yang Chengfu. Was your grandfather also, or he came in the next generation?
No, I don't know if he studied with Yan Fu or even met Yan Fu. I'm not sure about that. Uh, but my great grandfather followed him for many years. I think he had met Yan Fu, and but haven't didn't study with him continuously.
Hmm. Was it your great grandfather or your grandfather that started the Dong family tradition and approach to Tai Chi?
Well, we didn't really change the name until recently with my father, actually.
Oh,
So during my great grandfather's time and my grandfather, we just called it the Yang style, even though we practice the house style and we have our own forms, but we mainly call ourselves the Yang style. So that's why our style is not as well known because we only started to call our style recently. So if we started from my great grandfather's time, you know, there will be a lot more people practicing because now a lot of our students they just call themselves the Yang style.
Mm,
Yeah.
right. Because of three generations using the
Yeah. So
neigong
as you
style.
know, we're one of the earliest who brought Tai Chi outside of China.
Mm,
So uh, there's a lot of people who have studied with us or you know connected to us. So there's actually a lot of people who are connected to my family. But a lot of them just call themselves the Yang style practitioners. So
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess do you think uh so many people generally associate Dong family with Yang family style, I
Yes.
guess.
Yeah.
And when was it recently that you used the Dong family name? Like in the 1960s or
No, not even that long ago. It was just really
wow,
in the 90s.
90s. Okay.
After, we left China in the 80s. And then when my father started traveling more in the 90s and going back to China to teach, that's when he started calling it Dong style. But even then, he was the only one. But now, kind of more and more people in the family are kind of jumping on
Yeah.
board.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because we were, in the old days, you kind of have this loyalty to your master,
Of course.
right? So you don't want to just change style. But now it's been so many generations, and we have different forms that we practice. We have many more of our own forms that we practice than the Yang forms. And, through four generations, there are some changes. Even though the principles are the same, there are some changes. So it's kind of, we can't just say we practice Yang style anymore. We can say we practice Yang style, but it's the Dong family style. Yeah.
Having multiple generations in the families and more than one background of Tai Chi and creating your own training sequences and forms makes it reasonable, of course,
Yes.
to call
Yes.
it a Dong family system. Yeah.
Yes. Because we have a combination of different styles. My great grandfather actually started with the external style.
Mm,
Yeah. And, the Hao has a different energy. And he has a lot of experience, as you probably know. He traveled with his teacher from northern China all the way to southern China, meeting with different masters, taking on challenges, and then to Hong Kong and Southeast Asia by himself. So he had a lot of experience. So what we practice, we don't just practice the slow set. We have, fast set. Uh, we have forms that concentrate on fast energy or fudging. We have strong forms where focus more on the structure. So we have several different ways to practice. Of course, the Yang, um, we call it a slow form. That's more on the softer side. So each we use it for different training.
very interesting. If
Yeah.
someone were to look from the outside at your main form and a Yang main form, could they see the differences in each of the main postures?
Yes, if you're an experienced practitioner, it's pretty easy to see.
Yeah,
I mean, even somebody who don't know Tai Chi, if you put it side by side, they'll
you
say,
can see.
yeah, you can see the difference. Yeah, but I don't know if they understand it. But there are physical differences where you can see. Yeah.
Do you think that your great grandfather or your grandfather, or maybe your father, as the family style has been developed through the generations, was really trying to preserve some things that were being lost, or was it more modifying things based on their own personal experience?
Probably both because through each generation, we always contributed to the different forms. We contributed our own experiences and skills. So each generation had added things to our practice, but also preserving the traditional practice. I think, these days, especially uh, with China being in the Cultural Revolution for many years, and a lot of the traditional styles are lost, and especially with Tai Chi being internal, it's a little
Right.
more difficult to accomplish, so it's very hard to get it. That's the one thing about Tai Chi. It's not something that you just go there, you practice the applications, or you do training where you get strong. So it takes more time. So it's less people can actually reach to the point where they can preserve the art. Yeah.
Yeah, that preservation is a difficult thing, especially in China after the Cultural Revolution, and then the advent of Wushu, and then the shortened forms that were made mandatory. It's kind of like a lot in all the Kung Fu is a lot of the arts moved, the masters moved to Southeast Asia, Taiwan, other places to get away. So it's
Yeah, I think the like you said, the wushu has a big influence. They focus more on just the look, the beauty of the form, which is good too. They look very nice, but to me, traditional art has more energy, and there's more to it than just move beautifully. Yeah, right.
right.
Like so, most of them when they do tai chi or even external style wushu, they go very low, right? They kick very high, but in practical reasons, when you're very low, it's good for strengthening the legs, but your structure is not strong. So your structure is
Mhm.
always stronger than the muscles, right? So
Yeah.
in our style, for example, we have a average stance where we don't go lower than our knees. Your hips have to be above your knees to be strong. That's the structure, right? So if you
Mhm.
just go too low, it looks nice, but you're not as strong. Yeah.
It's easy for me as a external practitioner, to see the difference between like external kung fu and wushu. But
Yeah.
not being a Tai Chi practitioner, it's hard to see the difference. But I understand what you're talking about is the body method is so different. The energy movement is different, right? The intention
Yes.
is different. It's not just the
Yes.
pose or the snap.
Yeah, I'm kind of the other way around, right? So my focus is Tai Chi. I'm an
Yeah.
expert in Tai Chi. So when I watch their Tai Chi, it doesn't matter how they look when they move. I can tell if they have the right energy or not. If they were, you have to be not just people to stand like balance, for example, when you do a kick. You have to have power in the kick, or for instance, not get pushed over like in Tai Chi, right? So you have to
Right.
have roots. So there's so many other things involved. So it's not just about move fluidly or going very low.
We know that Tai Chi, or most people know that Tai Chi, um, part of it is developing chi within the body, your internal energy, your root. And we're going to get into those talks in a minute, those
Mhm.
discussion topics. But does Tai Chi, how does it affect the nervous system? Is that something that is known and taught by to how to that it's regulating the nervous system?
Yes, basically, I always say it's like eating, right? So we just have to eat healthy. We know what's good for us. And if we do that, what's inside will take care of itself,
Hmm.
right? So same thing as when we practice Tai Chi. First of all, we have to have correct form. If you're not comfortable, if you're doing the form wrong and you're too tight, you can't have a good energy, and then you can't improve the internal system, including the nervous system, right? So
Hmm.
you have to do the form right, and then you have to. The mind's a big part of it because you can look again nice on the outside, but if you don't focus, don't pay attention to what you do, you don't get the energy going, right? So like if you just concentrate on your hands, for instance, uh, or your fingers, if you point somewhere and concentrate on or look where you're pointing to, you tend to feel something in your fingers, and then your intention is clear. But if you point somewhere, if you look away or not thinking about it, you don't feel anything. So there's things that you have to do right, and if you do it right, everything will take care of itself, including improving the nervous system because it improves the blood movement, right? The circulation of the blood helps the nervous system.
Hmm. I think the
Yeah.
relaxation response too, right? Because you're not tensing, you're not flexing, you're
Yes,
not
that's
holding super low stances like external styles of Kung Fu,
right. So
right?
that's also part of it. So you can't be too soft, too empty. Like sometimes people they're too soft, right? Like I say, if you point your hand somewhere like being too soft, there's no energy. But if you extend, there's energy. When there's energy, you can start feeling the sensation. But if
Mm.
you're too stiff and you lock again, you feel strong, but it's less sensitive.
Hmm.
Yeah. So again, those things have to be right to to get the most out of your Tai Chi. Yeah.
Yeah. From your own experience, Alex, what actually changes in the body after decades of correct internal practice? What do you feel changes when you and your students that they report as a common reporting of a change in their body after, say, a decade or so of correct training?
Well, basically, it gets easier and easier. So for me, when I practice, when I make a move, it's effortless.
Mm.
But the energy is there. How can you do that? How can you move like you feel light, almost like your body is not in existence? That's how light I can feel sometimes. And how can it be strong, right? So, for example, like say if I go down, like I don't know if you know the move, brush knee and push,
Hmm.
right? So a lot of times people they stand straight or they're doing something, they have to brush, right? So for me, it's about also part of it is about uh, gravity. So when I'm brushing down, my angle is down slightly, right? So when I angle down, if I just relax my body, it becomes very light because I'm just
Mm.
going with it. Yeah, it's at a slight angle. But the slight angle, I can use my weight more, use gravity more. So it produces a lot of power. I can't be empty because I'm using my arms. So I have to have enough
Mm.
fullness in my arms, but I don't have to be strong. I don't have to push hard. Yeah.
Hmm.
Same thing as when I push forward, for instance, I can try to push hard or I can relax my weight into you, right? So I always show people at my workshops or in my class, if I just put all my weight on you, most people, even a strong person like yourself, probably will be hard to hold me up
Yeah.
because I'm, 180, 90 pounds. So if you can practice how to put the weight onto the opponent, let them carry it, you don't need strength. So when I do it, that's what I focus on. So the more I practice as I get more experience, the lighter I feel, but yet the more powerful the moves get.
Mm.
Yeah, with the
So it's
beginner, they're doing it more physically, so it's more work, right?
right.
Yeah.
I guess because there's more muscle tension and contraction then, because you don't have the energy or the alignment correct or use of gravity correct to help the body along. It's just mainly the remembering the form and then trying to recreate the pose properly. So you have a lot of muscle tension, which you lose over time.
Yes, and also, again, if you're making the moves, it's not the same as let's say if I just like a swing. If I just swing my arms and go
Right.
with it, my body's moving with it. And once you get in that rhythm, even though it's slow, you can develop a rhythm where one carries on to the other. So the energy builds on top of each other. So by
Mm.
the end of the move, for instance, it gets stronger and stronger.
Yeah. This kind of plays directly into the next question I had, which was kind of like, at what point in Tai Chi practice is it like you're not really, you're not really trying to just practice the memorized form, but the form is those movements have changed something inside of your body. It like reorganizes the human system, right? Because it puts blood and nervous system and relaxation above tension and deliberate moves, because when you're saying that you're floating and moving like it's nothing, you're not even thinking anymore at that level, right? It's just
Yes, that's
automatic.
that's how I feel, but the structure is still there. So I'm soft and
Hmm.
fluid muscularly, but my bone structure, my energy is still there. So it
Hmm.
feels soft, but it's not completely soft. Like sometimes people, when they practice Tai Chi, they're too soft.
Yeah,
You have to have a good balance of the yin and the yang. So there's softness, but there's also power within. Yeah.
right. So you can't be limp, too soft, like somebody just falling asleep.
Not all the time. In certain situations, again, everything has a use to it.
Yeah.
So you gotta use it at the right time. If you're limp when somebody's pushing you, they're just gonna push you, right? So sometimes you need a little firmness. Uh, But sometimes when you like say if I just want to drop down, I can be a little more limp, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody's pushing me, like I want to be firm, uh, I had to have more structure. So there's use for everything. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I always tell the students, there's really nothing's wrong, even if something that seems to be wrong. Like sometimes in push hands, I will make a move that makes something where I seem like I'm off or locked or something like doesn't look good. But I know what I'm doing, so I'm ready to change. I try to bait the opponent in, right? So as long as you have a plan, there's always a use for everything, you know.
Yeah. I, I've seen some push hand teacher practitioners who have a higher level of skill, not just a normal student level or regular
Mhm.
practitioner level, where they do look like they just go limp on one part somewhere, and you think, oh, the guy got him, and he's like, nope, now the guy's over behind him. The aggressor is now behind him because he relaxed completely at the right place with the structure.
Yes, and
So
also you have to the right time too.
yeah,
Uh, Once you relax, you generally it's best to match the opponent. Let's say if somebody's pushing me here directly on my chest, if I relax my body, again they're pushing my weight, right? So it makes it more difficult to them. But if you relax too much, then they can change direction. You might fall forward, right? So
right.
the goal is to kind of match, not too much, not too less, and always ready to change if when they change. Yeah.
Hmm. And when you mentioned a moment ago about some people, they get too soft, especially beginners. You say relax, be more supple or soft, but they're too overly soft. What piece of instruction are they missing that would help them
Well,
find that
basically,
that balance?
yeah, basically it's real challenges, right? So those people they tend to it's like playing a game. So if you
Yeah,
both of you playing the same game, it works,
right.
right? But if you go with somebody that doesn't play the same game, let's say they're very limp, but if you come somebody who sometimes don't even know Tai Chi, but they're young and strong, they grab you or bear hug you, what you gonna do? Right? So if they can be limp and get out of it, then I guess it's okay again.
Yeah,
But a lot of times I see people don't know how to deal with it. So they can play the game if it's the
right.
same game, but again, when somebody does something different or when somebody strike or are you ready to protect yourself, like
Hmm.
if you're leaning back, it's good if they can't move their foot. There's one guy who used to be kind of famous and he tend to lean a lot, but they don't move their feet, so he always hanging on to the other person's arm. But I
Yeah.
had somebody that told me, oh, I just stepped in and then he fell on his back. Right, so I just stepped in and leaned forward, let him down because he was just hanging on to you. So yeah, you have to be able to work everywhere, not just when you play
Yeah.
the same game. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
that's that's the problem. I think a lot of people, what they do is they both follow the same rules, so it seems to work, but it's not traditional Tai Chi, which is a martial art. You should
Right.
work against, especially grappling or something more like wrestling. You should work well. Yeah.
Yeah. For the new students coming in, or a student maybe who has been there a while but can't seem to relax properly, not in push hands, just doing the form and just
Mhm.
learning the basic movements, what is a good piece of structural advice to give them that they can take away if they're listening? Like, oh, I just can't get my shoulders loose enough. And when I hold up my arm, it's always stiff when I turn. Or what is a good piece of information that maybe they've missed in the teaching or in reading the classics or something that can help
Well,
them
basically, it's
find
not
that
easy.
suppleness?
Yeah, it's not easy because most people who start Tai Chi, they tend to be older, so middle age and
Hmm.
up, right? So by the time, especially when you are older, beyond middle age, your body has been doing certain things for many years, 50, 60 years. The longer you wait, the harder it is to change. So if
Yeah.
you start a kid, they don't have that kind of tension or stiffness or those, they have less problems, almost like what we say, starting with a blank paper. You can, whatever you write on it is fresh, right? So it's not have to erase and mark, cross it out, and too many things going on. Even if you make it correct, the paper doesn't look clean anymore. So the best way to do it actually, because again, we tend to start later in Tai Chi, so that's something we have to deal with. Try to be in the beginning a little more extreme. So if your shoulder is tight, you have to be more extreme. Let's say focus on sinking it or even just stretching it out.
Mm,
Yeah. So you have to do maybe specific exercises to help the shoulder.
hmm.
Or when you practice the form, you have to pay more attention to that for a while, until you get better. Because if you
Right.
just um, do it when you with the other moves the same way, it doesn't get better because that's more extreme. You have a bigger problem that's your kind of drawback, right? So
Hmm.
same thing as like when we do the kicks. Sometimes can't do people can't balance well on the kicks. So if you're just doing the kicks when you practice the form, it's hard to improve because the kicks are more difficult. So I tell the student, if you want to get better in the kicks, just do the kicks. Do it more times by itself, and your
Yeah.
kicks will get better, right? So yeah, things that's not easy. I mean, that's part of the journey. So um, is to improve ourselves. To you have to be more aware of the body. Sometimes people are not aware of they have stiff shoulders or you know different problems. Like, sometimes I have students leaning back, you know, uh, even pretty severely sometimes when they are upright. They don't realize it, so they can't correct it. And sometimes when I try to correct them, everybody can see they're upright. They tell me, really? I feel I'm falling forward, right?
Right.
But you have to, even that is hard for them to change. Maybe they have to even go further to overcompensate to change that let's say leaning back, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, you have to focus on it, work on it more, and go a little more extreme in the other direction to fix the problem, right? So if
Hmm.
you're stiff, for instance, some people they're very stiff, so some people they look like they work in construction or something all their life. They come in a lot of ache and pain, they can't relax. Yeah, in that case, it's better to do the form a little more on the limp side, not
Mm.
completely where there's no energy, but just more limp, at least
Hmm.
sometimes, you know just to try it. Maybe it's very limp, right? But sometimes people come in the other way around again. They're too soft. They're too limp. They have no structure, no connection. Then I tell them to just try to be stronger, use more energy. So that will help them improve. Yeah.
Now I learned John Zhuang's, as a system and Qigong, but when I, okay, I'm going to admit, when I was 16, I started Yang Tai Chi, and then
Mhm.
I quit because it was too slow.
Yeah.
I didn't have the patience because I
Yeah.
was doing other martial arts that was faster, and my mind was fast, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Tai Chi was like, by the time we get to the fifth move, I forgot what number we're on because the teacher's moving so slow. I couldn't remember where we
Yeah.
you know, were in the sequence. And then later, when I tried to start again with my teacher, Alex Ko, in the Philippines with Wu style,
Hmm.
um, then I had already like hip replacement and shoulder pain from too much eskrima, Filipino
Hmm.
arts, so it
Yeah.
was hard for me to hold some of the postures. So I let it go. And now, 25 years later, I wish I had not let it go, but just worked through those problems and maybe the joint movement would
Yeah.
be better.
That's why, as a teacher, you have to adjust, right? So in
Right.
your case, if I see somebody like you, I will adjust your form where it makes it easier for you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to follow exactly the same standard, let's say, with somebody who's healthier or younger, right?
Yeah.
So they can maybe go a little lower, you know.
Mhm.
So each student can be a little different, even though if they're in the same class, you gotta work accordingly. Again, people come in at an older age tend to have more problems. So actually, yeah, you could have modified your form where you can actually do it, and it would have been better if you, of course, started earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to find time to come and see you and learn from you. And
Yeah,
so you
you're
can help me
welcome.
move through that. I would love it. Thank you.
Mhm.
The reason I was asking, I mentioned the Zhanzhuang and the Qigong is because I have a medical Qigong Sifu for 12 years that I apprentice with.
Mhm.
Now, he would tell me, stop, don't do Tai Chi, Qigong. and this and that. If you want to learn Qigong, do Qigong. If you want to learn Tai Chi, do Tai Chi. Because we know that Tai Chi also has Tai Chi Qigong, right? And there's so many,
Mhm.
it's internal, so it has all the same
Mhm.
ideas of practices as how does your family kind of categorize those things?
To me, they all complement each other.
Hmm.
So if you practice Tai Chi, it's good to practice Qigong. It's good to practice other martial arts too, or anything. Because once, as long as you're moving, you're doing something for yourself, it's all good. Yeah, there's some problems though, because first of all, it's the time. Like, do you have time to practice everything? Do you want to
Right.
do all the different things or focus more on one? So
Right.
that's one problem. But I think they all help each other. The
Hmm.
other is sometimes like, I don't know about, maybe not so much in Qigong, but maybe in Qigong too, where it's actually a little different. But especially like sometimes I see in dance because people come in as a ballerinas,
Oh yeah.
before because they train very hard, so their body get really used to certain conditions. So
Right.
when they come to Tai Chi, it's very hard for them to get rid of that and do Tai Chi. Yeah.
Right.
So most of the time I think is good,
Hmm.
but certain times, depends what kind of qigong and what you're doing. If you're just working on the energy or something, you should complement your tai chi. But if you qigong have poses where it's very different from tai chi, sometimes I have people turn the toes out, for instance.
Yeah.
Both feet out. We don't do that in tai chi. So those things can be problematic,
Yeah.
unless you can differentiate it. You don't let one affect the other, then it's less problematic. So,
Hmm.
but overall, I think it's good. The qigong. Again, there's so much you can do. So we have our qigong, but we use our qigong to help improve our tai chi. So it's more connected. So if you practice our qigong and our tai chi, they don't contradict each other.
Right.
But if you learn something else, that could be too different where
Yeah.
yeah, you could maybe not so good unless you can differentiate it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the
So yeah, again,
complementary training.
yeah, it all depends, but just to me the practice of qigong is good for tai chi too, but tai chi already uses qi too, so
Right.
you can break the Tai Chi down with the moves and focus more on the Chi. So one of the problem with Tai Chi, especially the traditional ones, there are too many moves,
Hmm.
right? It's very long, so it's hard to learn. Again, as you start at an older age and you have a busier life, it's harder to even remember all the steps. Because if you can't remember the steps, it's hard to get better. So not like, Tai Chi was developed over 1,000 years ago back then, or even as recently as when I was living in China, uh, before the 80s, we started Tai Chi as a kid, you
Yeah.
know. So starting as a kid, we can memorize a lot better. I can pick up a whole form in a couple hours,
Yeah.
right? So it's a different time now. So yeah, with so many moves, sometimes people get distracted and can't even do the steps correct, can't remember the moves. Then it's hard to focus on the energy. Yeah. So that's why we also have short forms or exercises that just use a few moves
Mm.
to focus on the energy. Right. So once you develop the energy, it's good to do the whole form because then you can use the energy in different places instead of just those same few moves. So again, they both have advantages and disadvantages. It depends how much time you have and when you start to learn. So you have to look at different things. Each student is different.
Yeah. So the expectations need to match the goal, right? Like as
Yes.
a
Yeah.
practitioner,
Yeah.
what's your age? What's the goal you're trying to achieve? How much time do you have to dedicate to class and training at home, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Well,
the
it's always
master,
good to try to learn the best you can.
yeah,
Like even let's say just with the Tai Chi forms, often I tend to hear, "Oh, I'm just doing it for exercise." It almost sounds like then they don't need to do it so seriously
right.
or correctly, right? When you do it seriously, when you do it correctly, it's always better. It's better for exercise, better for energy, it's better for martial arts. You know. So with my son, he's 10 years old. He's not as focused on practicing. So I told him, I'm not asking you to practice a lot, but when you practice, just try your best. Try to do it, the best you can. Yeah.
Tell them no stress, but the entire 5 generations of the family rests on you. But
Yeah.
no stress.
Yeah. But he started at 4, so he
Oh,
he have a head
he,
start. So
he got a good head start. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, Tai Chi is an internal martial art, and some people listening are not martial artists, right? Or they're
Hmm.
external stylists, so they only have a vague idea of what do you mean internal? And when I think of that, I think of, the yi or the intention is important. The chi or
Hmm.
the energy is important. The breath is important because that's the respiration of the body and
Yeah.
and the heart moving. And the Dantian is important, the lower Dantian, because of chi and movement. Um, could you explain each of those parts or your own set of essential pieces of what makes Tai Chi internal? Like, what are some core elements of what makes this art internal, and what do we mean by that?
Well, there's a saying in China where the internal and external start from two different places, but you finish at the same place. So once
Yeah.
you reach the high level, they're the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, Tai Chi follows universal principles, principle of nature. So actually, everything's the same. So in external style, you actually do the same things. In sports, if you watch, let's say, the Winter Olympics that just finished, the athletes use the same principle. I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings of people
Mm,
who practice Tai Chi, or even people who don't practice Tai Chi. They misunderstand Tai Chi because they think Tai Chi is a certain way. That's because a lot of the Tai Chi practitioners describe Tai Chi has to be this way.
mm,
Tai Chi is universal. There's no end, no beginning. So the principles can always adjust, fitting to the situation. And how we make our body strong in Tai Chi, you would do the same thing. For example, we focus more on slow and staying calm and the breath, but in external style, weight training, running, everybody talk about the breath, staying focused. This technique, that there are differences, but if you go down to the core, it's all the same. Like people, so you can say that everybody's different, or you can say everybody's the same. So I always explain how Tai Chi. I have many students that practice external martial art or other kind of sports. What I say always matches what they have learned. I think that's one of the biggest difference. Yeah.
mm,
So to me, internal things happens naturally, right? So why we do it differently because let's say on the slow forms, it's different from the fast form too. Yeah. So we use our breath, we use our internal energy. The breath helps. The goal is to be strong, right? As in Tai Chi, any martial arts, goal is to have power, to be strong, to be quick, to have good techniques. So to be strong, we focus more on the inside instead of the muscles, right? Muscles help too, but it doesn't last as long. So like if a weight trainer doesn't lift weight for a year, they probably get weak pretty quick, right? So,
mhm.
but you can always use your breath. Always use your internal energy. So a lot of the focus is different. I always show people like instead of being strong, if I use my breath to expand, the breath help me open my body. That also makes me strong. So there are differences, and
Mm,
also just the technique of using the body, like I said. So instead of just think about punching hard, I try to use gravity and other things. So it's not just the internal thing that helps you help Tai Chi, to be strong or to be Tai Chi, but it's also about combining the movements sometimes, which could be a little different. So we don't just focus on being strong, um, but also focus more on the other things. But I know external martial arts or sports, they all use it, but maybe at a little differently. Yeah.
in the internal arts, they talk a lot about the Dantian, the
Hmm.
elixir field where chi is stored uh, and developed. What is that field? And is it something that people can feel?
Yes, it's very easy actually, because again, people describe it, they go uh
Mystical.
too mystical, too deep, where it has nothing. First of all, how do you use it? How does it make you strong, right? So again, that's the goal of Tai Chi or as martial art. They get very deep, maybe it's connected more to other things, but is it useful? You know, that's the first question. Because when it's useful, it actually is better for our body, better for our health. If what I do can make me strong, that's the number one thing for health. But with the Dantian, again, it's natural. It's not different from anything you do, or like if you lift weight or try to jump. When you're actually trying to be strong, let's say you can try it with me, right? So here, if I try to be strong, you try to feel your Dantian is firm. It can be empty, can be extend banded, can be hollow, because that all affects the push. So it's how do I make my push strong? Is to sink my breath. When I sink my breath, it doesn't make the dantian expand. It makes it contract. So the dantian is firm. So when we breathe here, it's reverse breathing. So normally when we breathe in, the dantian expands. But here, when we breathe in, we expand the chest. So we hold the air, the oxygen in the chest. When we use it, we drop the chi down. That can really build energy. It's pretty easy to feel it. If you, I don't know if you tried it or not.
Hmm.
Same thing. If you just hold your hand like this, if you just make your body strong, you'll feel your dantian very firm,
Yeah.
right? And then if I will go like this, sting my chi, so that will help my clothes or whatever I'm doing here.
Hmm.
So that's stinking the chi. So that again, it also has to do with the body, right? And then to do that, if I expand, take a deep breath, there's more chi going down. Chi is part of people that make it too mystical, where it's hard to know it's there or not. But it's really the main component of it is the breath. Because the breath takes in oxygen. Oxygen helps our blood circulate. It makes our body stronger. So the more you can take in, the more you can sink. So that makes you strong. So again, if you're doing it slow, it's very feels very good. Up, now I'm sinking the chi down. It just moves the body, makes the body expand and contract, keep it moving. But if you do it fast, you breathe in, you sink the chi, it's very quick, right? But in the Tai Chi, again, on the slower moves, is gradual. But when you do it fast, it's more quick. So same thing when again, when you do everything else. Because once you expand, you try to make your belly big, take a breath in, or try to make it big, doesn't matter. You try to push, you'll feel it's
Yeah.
very difficult to
Yeah.
apply strength, right? You try that, right?
Yeah.
So we use the breath, like I say, when we expand, that will make my expansion stronger, right? But when I gather, I sink the chi, that will make my gather stronger. But
Yeah.
when I push, I want to expand, but at the same time, I want to be rooted. So it's a little bit of a combination. So you have to sink the chi while extending the energy. So
Mm.
again, it depends on what you're doing. Some moves are we're just expanding. We can focus more on the expand. Some who like just sinking more. But it's always a little bit of both. But it can vary the degree how much you expand and how much you concentrate on the sink can vary. Yeah.
Mm.
Again,
Interesting.
it's all practical things where it's very simple to understand, it's very easy to learn instead of like hearing nice stories where you probably will never get it. You know,
Right.
how I move my body is exactly like how people do weights, archery, uh, throwing, baseball or football or wrestling or punching in martial art is the same. Again,
Hmm.
there's some differences, but a lot of it is the same. If you go down to the core principle, that's how I compare. I use common sense with my students, not mystical things where, oh, sounds amazing because they don't know it, or and it's probably they'll never be able to do it. Or the teacher, they just talk, but you know, some of the things is impossible, right?
Right. Right. Tai Chi has a principle called song. Could you
Yeah.
describe that for us? Explain that.
Yeah. Song is basically it's not to be stiff. Again, also depends where you use it. So when you move your song, you're a little lighter in the joints, so you can't be tight, right?
Hmm.
Song that means don't make it too tight. But you can use differently. Like when I go down, again, if I'm too stiff, I can't sink my weight. So if I want to sink or if I want to pull back where I need to use my weight, there had to be a song, a little bit of looseness. But again, people tend to overemphasize on it. It works at times for certain specific things, but overall, you maintain a little bit of song throughout the body so you can move well. And then sometimes I can song a little more, like when I go down. But when I open, I'm not song like going down, but I have to have song which is uh, looseness or softness where I can expand.
Mm.
Once your arms get too tight, you can't open internally where it's like expanding the fascia, opening the joints, even like the veins, almost like getting full because you're improving or increasing your blood circulation, right? So once you do that, the veins start to almost to stretch out. It pushes everything outwards. It makes you stronger. Again, it's all very easy to see if you can feel it. Let's say if we're talking face to face, I can show you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, so as a non-Tai Chi person who's read a lot of Tai Chi books, me,
Mhm. Mhm.
and watch a lot of videos, I'm still just a spectator, right, for Tai Chi, so
Mhm.
I don't know. But when I hear people talking about song, they're always talking in a positive definition. It's song is to be relaxed and to sink. And your definition was from a negative side, saying don't be stiff. It's
Yes.
a whole different
Right. Kind
360.
of the same thing, but yeah,
Same
not the
thing, but
same
it's a
thing.
different emphasis.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So is that important to think of it as the don't song is a don't be this rather than a do this?
Yeah, I think so because again, Tai Chi as a martial art is
Yeah.
about power. It's about quick movements. So if you're too
Yeah.
stiff, you move slow, right? So
Yeah.
the song it helps you move quicker.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's better to think this way than
Hmm.
thinking like the song, is like the only thing that the most important thing. Song is
Right.
to help you do other things better. Yeah.
Is there a way to train song uh, for students? I mean, I know the training is different as you get better and better and spend more time in because you have more touch points to expand your evolution on, right? The
Yeah.
cultivation of the skill. But
Mm.
as a beginner or someone maybe who's finished the form, but they're not a Sifu, and
Mhm.
they're having difficulty with song, what are some ways that they can correct it or improve it
Well,
without
it's
losing
hard
that
by yourself.
structural
Yeah.
integrity that you speak
It's
of?
it's hard by yourself because it takes sensitivity. You gotta be able to control your body. So as a newer student or even experienced student, sometimes very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So I use partner work,
Mm.
right? So that really helps a lot. At least they can understand it. Even if they can't do it in the form right away. Like say, if I have somebody, one of the things to like let's pretend I'm standing like in a horse stance, but not too low, right? I'm standing like this, and then I just have somebody push me on the shoulder from one side. So as he push me slowly, I just again match his push, just kind of relax, give him my weight without leaning.
Mm-hmm.
So that to do that, I need to relax because when you don't have song, if you're stiff and lean, they can actually push you over
Mm-hmm.
very easily because your body is one. If you're like a big log, right? So if you push on the top, you
Yeah.
can push the log over very difficult. But if you're like a sandbag, that's the that's my description from being song because is every part of the body can be loose. So as a sandbag, everywhere you move, the other part doesn't move. When you do a punch, it's the hardest to go through a sandbag because the sand is so fine that your force doesn't travel as far, right?
Mm.
So there, as when somebody push you, it's very easy to feel, or they can also give you feedback if you have song or not. So I think
Mm-hmm.
partner work is a quicker way to kind of get a feel of it, and then you can try to. It's still not easy to apply it to your own form practice, but I think it will help a lot. Yeah.
That's a great analogy of the sandbag. Because if I
Yeah.
think of like a 5 foot telephone pole, just
Yeah.
that's
Mm.
heavy and you can push it over, or you could pick it up because it's solid, right?
Yeah.
All the weight is centered. And
Yeah.
if I think of a 6 foot high or 5 foot high sandbag, everywhere you hold or pull, it's
Yeah.
difficult because the weight is heavy. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah, even if you think of a log laying down, you can roll it. But a sandbag, if you put it down, it's very hard to flip it over, right?
yeah,
So that's why we, especially with a lot of force, like floods, that's why we use sandbags to stop floods. We don't use
right.
rocks and logs because they're just going to get pushed away. The
Hmm.
sandbag, it really sinks into each other. And then, again, the fineness of the sand, it actually makes it connect better, stick to the next sandbag better. Yeah, so in push hands, that's what I use with my students. How to be like a sandbag. Yeah.
Hmm. So I mean, I guess we're also talking about a concept called rooting, right?
Hmm.
So are rooting and song always connected because your feet need to be rooted
Yes.
to the ground?
Yeah. So in Tai Chi, you have to, it's not just one or the other. So this is again the same thing. If you want to jump high, you have to have softness. You can't be stiff, but you also have to power. You have to push off the ground,
Yeah.
right? So to root, it's like connecting with the ground, right? So you have to be a little song because again, then unless you're super strong and you can be tight, nobody can move you. But otherwise, by being locked, you're not only weaker when they push directly against you, but you're also weaker when they wiggle around. So once you get a little off balance, you lose your roots. Then you get thrown or pushed down a lot easier. Yeah. So the song is like a tree or anything that's flexible that gives it the bend or gives it a
Hmm.
little movement. It absorbs a lot of the pressure, so you don't take it all in one place or in your feet. So when you
Hmm.
push me, every part of my body will take a little bit of your force. So by the time I get to my feet, it had already dissolved basically. Um, so you're not that strong. So you have to be a lot stronger than me really to move me. Yeah.
I often see pictures in books when we're talking about rooting, they'll have somebody standing and like tree roots going down into the ground.
Hmm.
I guess because the word is rooting. But
Yeah.
do we need in Tai Chi, does one need to use visualization to get that root, or do you just get it naturally from being song and having the correct structure like you talk about?
Well, it's more important if you don't have the correct structure or correct energy. Doesn't matter what you visualize; it doesn't happen.
Right.
So visualization could help a little. I'm not saying it doesn't help, but you have to have the other things, do the other things correctly, right?
Hmm.
So when you do that, even if you don't visualize, you will still get it. Maybe if you visualize, you'll get 5% faster, or it does maybe make a difference. But if you don't do the energy and the form correctly, the structure doesn't matter how hard you visualize. It's just because I sit at home every day, I'm gonna visualize I'm a billionaire, doesn't mean that's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah, this helps frame, which I was hoping, it helps frame Tai Chi as a real practical art and training method that's rooted in physics, anatomy, you know, physiology of the human being, not of magic.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's physiology, physics, and
physics for
also
sure.
even with the push hand, it's psychology. So you can use everything
Hmm.
because you're dealing with people and movement and energy. So
At what point in training is it good or appropriate for people to start push hands?
you can start whenever to me. You know,
Hmm.
you just don't want to like you can learn any form. Some people say, "Oh, you have to learn this, you have to learn that, and then you have to learn that." It's so stiff about the sequence. But every art is different, focuses on different things.
Yeah.
So some people say, like, you have to learn the slow form first. To me, you don't really. You can start with the fast form. It's just a different energy. Maybe the
Hmm.
slow forms are good if you want to focus on being soft. and just be more calm. So that's probably better with the slow form. But fast form or other forms has you can even start with weapons. Uh, just have a different energy so that you
Mm.
focus on different things. You just can't learn so many things at one time. Again, it depends how fast
Right.
you can absorb. If you're learning too many things and you start forgetting, getting confused with mix the two, then it's not good. But you can start with any form. You can start with push hands, and some people just do push hands. I think if you just do push hands, you don't get a full understanding of Tai Chi. So you need to have a combination. But you can still just get good and use good Tai Chi energy just doing push hands.
Hmm.
So I will sometimes start. It depends what I'm doing in the class. So if I'm doing simple push hands, I will let the beginners join just as they're doing the circle. Just feel. It's good for them to feel the circle with someone else. When you make contact, how you move, it's very different from moving by yourself. Because
Hmm.
moving by yourself, I can think about what's for dinner, or just kind of completely lose my focus. But doing it with another person, it doesn't work so well. So, and also, if you both of you are stiff, or when you do things wrong, it doesn't work well because it's fluid. You have to make the circle. So, even beginners can learn from it if it's, step by step. Yeah. So I don't want to throw them in right away, like pushing and wrestling and going hard with the more advanced students, because sometimes the advanced student don't have control, might throw them down, and somebody might get hurt. So that's not good. But if you're talking about control training, you can start whenever.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
I think most martial arts I find and training systems, internal arts have a set of key movements, right?
Mm.
So in Tai Chi, would that be ward off, roll back, press, and push as they're kind of like a pillar of four core movements or concepts?
Yes, the four movements those four is a posture in Tai Chi, but it's also focused, it's a four energy. So
Mm,
there's not only four movements, but you're working on four different energy, right?
right.
So that's why that is everywhere in the form, not the move itself, but the energy is in
Mm,
the you have to kind of maintain most of the time more than one because in different moves you're doing different things, right? So it's always there, right? Basically, let's say pung, you want to be more rounded. So even if I'm going straight, I want to have some roundness because it helps my balance, right? So it's maintaining that energy for energy throughout the form continuously. So it's not the four move itself because every move is important. Why is only this four that's more important than other moves? It's because this is for energy. They made four moves out of it, but what they meant is the four energy. Yeah.
Can you explain each one, each of the four at the, because you just said pung, right? But some listeners may not know the Chinese word and what it
Pung
refers to.
just word off like expanding, right? In the form, we do the pung like this, but the pung you can't. It's not a push or it's not a close. So the pung is more rounded. So basically, like doing a circle, but
Hmm.
slightly different, right? And because I'm just being rounded, so I'm not committed into the forward motion as much because I want to be strong all around. So with the
Mm,
press, it's more anytime that you uh, gather, compress, that's like pressing, right? So here, you see how the arm from being
hmm.
open, so it's the opposite. The pung and the press is the opposite, right? So here is more of a gather. And then you have the back, the roll back, right, down, and then forward and up, right? So there's two different energy. How you do the roll back,
Mm,
it's different from how you do the push. So it's every move, either you're going forward or you're going back, right? So when
hmm.
I do cloud hands, it's kind of like going back, say, or similar, a little different, right? So
Yeah.
you finding this energy in different moves. Like here, when you do the white crane spreading its wing, this is pung too, just
Mm,
going upward, right?
I see.
Pung doesn't have to be forward, so this is upwards. So it's the energy of being more full. So if I
Mm,
do this, you know, now I don't have energy, I'm not expanding,
mm,
right? So I'm just loose. So either you have to expand or you have to sink. You have to have an energy, not just kind of be limp,
Yeah.
hanging out there, like not doing anything. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it goes from one to the next. If you make a circle, right, it's continuous now, reverse into the gather and push. So it's continuously moving. So there's no time in between where I'm just limp. Sometimes people do that, right? So if you think about making a fast circle, there's no break. You can't hesitate. So in Tai Chi, the goal is to do it like fast, like this, but nice and slow. So the advantage of doing it slow and having the same fast energy feeling is I can feel it more. Here, I don't feel it. I did the move, but here, I can really feel my body more. I can try to concentrate more on moving the chi and the circulation. So that's the advantage of doing it slow.
Mm,
Yeah. But the
interesting.
energy again is the same. Yeah. Sometimes when people do it slow, there's so much time, this again, the mind starts to wander. And there are another big things. Sometimes the external stylists or people who don't know Tai Chi, you know, they always say, oh, you should be always looking at your opponent. That's because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what we're trying to accomplish in Tai Chi,
Right.
right? Again, it's all common sense. When you do it slow, I can't be looking at my opponent all the time. After you stare for so many seconds, you're going to get dizzy, your eyes are going to get blurry, right? So when you do it fast, you can't follow your hand because it's too quick. Then you're going to get dizzy. So when you do it fast, your eyes meet where your hand's going to go. So, or you can say looking at your opponent. But when I'm doing it slow, I kind of watch my hands. I pay more attention to my body. The goal is to focus more on the energy. And because it's slow, you can't stare at the opponent. You don't want to give it away. Even if you're doing it fast, you don't want to be you want to look at the opponent, you want to see them, but not necessarily always staring at them. Yeah. So some
So
people,
I
they don't understand. Even, of course, the people who don't practice Tai Chi, they don't understand. Even those who do practice, they don't understand. So they don't have a good explanation to counter other people's attacks.
right, right.
Yeah.
Hmm. And I think
It's all common sense, right? What I said to you, it's all common sense. It's easy to understand. Like you try to look to the front while you're moving slow, you're actually going to lose your concentration, and it's very
right.
difficult. It takes a lot of energy to stare at one place, for a long period. So when we do the slow set, it's one set, but when we do like our style have all the different forms, right? So when we do the fast set, we teach people differently. But somebody who only practice the slow, they don't practice, the other way. So they also probably don't understand. So they don't have a good explanation to counter other people's questions. Yeah.
Hmm. I think to be good at push hands, you would have to have learned the energies of ward off, roll back, press, and push because those are being utilized in the single and double hands push hands, correct? Two hand push hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And a lot of people don't use it. They tend to focus more on the circle, which is fine too. But if you're not focusing on the four energies, you just want to do circle, and that's fine too. Again, it's nothing wrong. There's nothing really wrong. It depends what you're doing, right? So in our push hand, we do focus on the ward off. So I
Mm.
start with the ward off, and then you do the push. So when you do the push, I have a choice. In the circle, we retreat. So now I'm going to do the roll back. But if it's really pushing, I have a choice of not moving back. So just because you're pushing me doesn't mean I have to move back. If I'm stronger than you, go ahead and push. You're not going to move me. Why should I retreat? Right. So people again, they have the mentality once they touch you, you have to retreat, otherwise wrong. That's the wrong thinking.
And what do you see with students in their push hands practice, the errors that they're making that tend to block their progress? Trying too hard, trying to force a push or something to move the opponent? Are there certain traps and errors that you see that are slowing down progress for people?
Yeah, yeah, I think there's many things, but a lot of the time people tend to they keep doing the same thing. They make the same mistake, and people who are strong, they're only strong. They don't work on the other things, like be softer or, sometimes when they're strong, they don't need as much technique. So they tend to work on less technique maybe. So if they meet somebody stronger, they don't know how to deal with them. So I think it's a little bit of everything, but for the most important things, you have to learn. Like for me, I always tell my student, if you push me once, maybe I wasn't paying attention, you can get me, but I'm not going to let you get me again. you know. So once you get me once, I had to be ready for the next time.
Hmm.
Sometimes I share this. Just a quick story. This one of my father's students were doing push hands. He tripped me from the back. I was, again, maybe I don't know what happened, but he was very good too, I guess.
Yeah.
So he tripped me, so I fell down. I said, okay, now I remember that. Not doing that time, because I don't forget. Many times later, I don't know how long later, it was a long while before he tried it again. So when he tried on me, I was waiting for him, even after a long time. So once he tried to hook me, I just moved my leg. Instead, I got him because he was trying to get behind me. It's much easier for me to move. I don't have to move as much. So he was trying to step over. So with a little move, his body was off balance, and I slammed him on the ground. And I was waiting for that for a long time, right? So that's how you get better, because once that's something, everybody's gonna get pushed sometimes. But when you get pushed, you gotta learn from it. Sometimes I see the people getting the push the same way again and again, even just a simple, let's say,
Yeah.
forward push. I said, you got pushed like that 3 times. It's very simple, it's very direct. Why don't you do something? At least right or wrong, try something. Then you know if it's work or not. If it doesn't, try something else, right?
Hmm.
So you have to learn that way, try to get better instead of just, oh, okay, I got pushed. The next time I got pushed again.
So I think in push hands, if we talk about signs of progress that someone can mark for themselves to know they're progressing, right? Without
Mhm.
the Sifu having to say, "Oh, you're getting better," because we need to rely on ourselves a lot. One of the methods is what you're saying is, I don't fall for that straight push again. After three
Mhm.
times, eventually
Yes.
I find a way to counter it or improve myself so I'm not so easily pushed.
Mhm.
What other kind of reliable signs are there within Tai Chi for students to know that they're improving, that they can feel themselves either in the solo form or in partner training?
Well, I mean, beyond pushing people, getting people off balance, so that's easy to see. Also, you can also watch yourself. So if you're more calm, right? Even if somebody push you, did you get off balance? Like, did you step back with a good posture, or were you like falling off balance? And also, am I relaxed? Or am I getting stronger? Or are you improving yourself? So you can also watch what you do, just to see if your energy is better, right? If you're more comfortable, or if you when you finish you're less tired, right? So there's other things where you can watch, and not just like if you can push people or not.
Hmm. And for an outside viewer like yourself as their teacher, you can see in their body mechanic, their posture, their structure,
Mhm.
how well that they're progressing, right? Because it should be obvious to the viewer if the viewer is also well trained, correct?
Yes, so if you know what you're looking at, you can really see.
Hmm.
Um, and even just to feel, right? As we're doing push hands, we stay. The goal is to stay in contact, and that's reason why is to be able to feel the body. So when I push one plate, they may be strong here. If I'm pushing here, for most people, they might be weaker another place, right? So you have to find other places where you can attack, right? So not just some people are like, oh, if I can't push you, I'm just going to apply more energy or more strength.
Right,
So it's good to learn how to feel. Learning about the body, it's like I tell my students, like the Chinese doctor feeling your pulse. They can, like, just by feeling your pulse, they can read a lot about your body and if you're sick, right? So
right.
we should be able to do that in Tai Chi if you're really well trained and work on this kind of things. But just by touching the arm, um, you can really feel a lot about the body, where they're weak, and also through experience you can kind of know how the other person react.
Hmm. Hmm. What do you think is the most universal misunderstanding in the West about internal martial arts or Tai Chi in specifically?
Well, I mean, those, to me, is both sides. Like those who practice Tai Chi, they kind of have a little misunderstanding of Tai Chi, and of course those who don't practice Tai Chi has a misunderstanding of Tai Chi, right? So what they don't realize is kind of like what I said earlier. I can show you how effective the Tai Chi energy is. You know, let's say, in Tai Chi, with like even in our class, this is the group age. So we don't practice a lot of fighting, for instance, right? So that's not something I specialize at. But I can show you by practicing push hands, it's the same as fighting. It should work, you know. Or when I use my energy, I can show you I can be stronger than you, even if you're bigger than me. Or, when you try to move me, I don't move. So Tai Chi is very practical. It's easy to see. It's not like now you see on YouTube, there's a lot of acting where the teacher is kind of doesn't really touch the student or very lightly, and the student's falling all over the place. So
Mhm.
Tai Chi get a bad rap, so I understand. But for me, let's say again, if we're doing this in person, I can show you how to expand the body, where you can feel the difference in strength, or how to get stronger. Let's say if somebody's pushing you, or just a lot of everything I say, I can show you very clearly. Even somebody who just picked from the street, they can see the difference. So
Mhm.
it should be very practical. I guess people think, very like watching movies or something. Like, I guess people like these kind of things, but there's a lot of misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Like both sides, even the practitioners.
Yeah. I think a lot of people misunderstand what is meant by qi in Tai Chi, right?
Yes, a lot of people say, "Oh, there's no such thing as chi." That's because how people describe chi, they make
Right.
it so mystical, where it's very hard to, you don't even really know it does exist. The way they explain it, but if you can show them, something more direct, something's more easily to feel and see, then they'll believe it. Again, chi, we all use chi, including external stylists, including athletes. Without chi is really just a form of energy going deeper than just using the body or strength. So everybody has it, everybody uses it. Again, we might try to do it, practice it differently. Without chi, you know, you wouldn't be moving well. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Mm.
And another concept is Jin. And this is kind of what you're talking about, the people flying away. We see Fa Jin and Kong Jin, Ling Kong
Yeah.
Jin,
Yeah.
right? The touchless
Yeah.
throw.
Again, a lot of it, like, the Westerners, they have
Yeah.
a really complicated explanation. If you go to China and talk with people about Jin, what's Jin? They use Jin in everywhere, not just in Tai Chi. So
Hmm.
Jin is basically, if you're not strength where you're using all muscles. Jin is still about you having energy and being strong. So, again, keep it simple, easy to see, easy to show, easy to demonstrate. So everybody can, uh, when they experience it, they know the difference. Not, has million explanations, but nobody can feel it.
Right.
Uh, Again, a lot of times, you only work when they demonstrate with their students. That's why they never try with people who's not their students, or who are not cooperative.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But so Fa Jin is really it's the expression of the
Yeah.
force.
So just reusing the energy, right? Using Jin. So just Fa means just issue or release. Jin is energy. The Fa Jin, the form, we focus more on the Fa Jin, right? Because the slow form, we focus more on the circulation, the more the awareness, sensitivity. So again, it's a different training. So Fa Jin
Hmm.
is really just like punching, when you're using Fa Jin, but again, how it comes, it might be a little different, because let's say, I'm not saying all external style are like this, but maybe just concentrate on going fast or punching hard. Or in Tai Chi, you have to use our weight, use the feet or sink, and have to be soft, so we can use our weight. We can lean into the punch. So there's a lot of differences, but basically, again, come down to it, it's still the same. So it's about having more power.
Hmm. And just like ward off, roll back, press, and push are different kinds of energies, Qi and
Mhm.
Jin are different energies, right? So when you're using Fa Jin, they're not calling it Fa Qi, correct?
Yes, because Qi is supporting the Jin. It supports the structure. So chi is not something on the inside, like your spirit. For instance, you have good spirit, you have a better glow, or even you have more energy. So it's something that supports what you're doing.
Hmm.
So you don't say fa qi, you say fa jin. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
I
you can
think,
circulate the qi, but you don't fa qi because qi doesn't really come outside of the body.
hmm. And
Yeah.
Li is different from Jin and Qi, right? Li.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to differentiate because it's two different words.
Right.
But again, it's much less talked about in China. When we say Li, yeah, it's more physical. Jin, it's not something. Once you like say you practice, maybe in the first you learn a form, you mean in a form, right? You punching hard in the beginning, you're forcing it. Maybe it's more not natural. So, but once you practice, you punch 1,000 times, 10,000 times, you naturally become more refined. So it's just a
Hmm.
better way of more developed, more so kind
More
of
refined energy,
yeah,
like you say.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 But again, there's not too much talk about the difference between Jin and Li. Let's say when I go to China, I hardly hear anybody talk about this.
Well, that's our Western, I'll just
Yeah,
say for America, our American fantasies,
yeah,
it's those terms are just part of your everyday culture in China.
yeah,
Qi Jing, Shen Qi, right?
yeah,
Li, all of it. But over here, we're like, oh, they're different words, and I'm getting the secret. But it's really not so secret. It's just train properly, learn
yeah,
properly, and
yeah. The
practice.
same thing with Qi, because when we talk about Qi, it's not only used in Tai Chi.
Right.
It's talked about
Everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah, so people who didn't grow up in that culture, they don't can't relate to it, so they don't
Right.
think it this because again, people who do talk about it here, not making it easy for or easy to see or to feel for the regular people, who don't
Hmm.
practice Tai Chi.
And even though for Westerners, I just like to point this out, when they say Tai Chi, it's different from Chi energy because it's a different character, even though they sound the
Yeah,
same.
because it's really Tai Chi.
It's Tai Chi, right?
Yeah, so but Chi is I don't know, it's like what you call the way of a different kind of
The Wade's
something that
Giles
yeah,
writing
way
it.
dial, yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's really Tai Chi, the word Ji,
yeah.
and then Chi, right? So it's two different words, and it sounds different, but it just kind of got mixed up.
Well, our
Uh,
ears don't hear
yeah,
tones, in
yeah,
America. It's hard to hear a tone. And in Chinese, the word could sound the same to us, but it's a different tone. So
yeah,
has
but this
different
is not
meaning.
it doesn't even sound the same, and so it's completely different. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
not like a sound, it's the same spelling, pinyin spelling,
yeah.
but different tone. This is completely
Completely different.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Tai Chi translates to grand ultimate.
Um, yeah, I guess you can say that, but again, it's hard to give just one word translation or two word translation. Basically, Tai Chi is a philosophy of yin and yang. So
Right.
it's about, I guess it's a grand ultimate because everything is based on yin and yang. So you
Right.
can say that. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say it's wrong, but again, I don't know if that's the exact translation. So
If
sometimes
someone
there's
asks
no
you, how
there's
do you
no exact
yeah, I mean, we don't need an exact translation, but
yeah.
what would be a better or maybe a more appropriate translation of the word if we had to put it into English? Instead of saying Tai Chi, we could say, what would we call the practice?
Um. Well, the word Thai is like grand,
Right.
but G, it's like I don't know what would be the best word for G. And also, because sometimes, it's not just one word too, it's how it put together. That's why if you
Yeah.
put the word Tai Chi together, Tai Chi represent a certain philosophy, right? You
Right.
represent a philosophy, how we do things. So
Hmm.
that's why it's not uh, like just a name, like, you have a name, I have a name. But
Right.
if we're talking about us as a person, there's no one word to describe or two words to describe
What's a
us. Yeah.
person?
Yeah.
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 Hmm. How has your own understanding of this art changed from, say, your mid 20s till today? with all this more
Change in
time
general or in myself?
for yourself? How is your own understanding of the art, how you understand the art changed and how you see it differently now than say in your mid-20s?
Well, for me, in my mid 20s, I was practicing more. So it's more about the practice, right? So later, as I started to teach more, it's more about the teaching. So I
Mm,
focus more on how to improve my teaching. I develop different tools to improve my teaching. So there's a lot of other things that I'm working on. But as myself, there's of course changes, and I just now, I just feel like I said, I feel so much lighter, for example, compared to before.
hmm
Before it's about doing it, maybe more energy or try to be strong. Now it's just about like going with it, like swing, right? If you just let it swing, the more the swing can swing, the more power. You don't want to stand in front of a swing. So in that sense, my body is a lot lighter. And a lot of people, they either empty, very loose, or they're strong. So they don't have the lightness where it's kind of gliding like a swing up and down, going with the momentum. So I think that's where, like, you can see in my, you watch my grandfather's video, you know, many people consider that's the best Tai Chi form. Uh, you see how light he is, how he kind of just glides in the air, but you can see the power, right? So the more a higher level you get, or as I get older, I get better. That's what I'm starting to feel more in my practice.
hmm I
Mm.
think I have the old Chinese edition of your grandfather's book. It's very nice. Red cover, I think. Has a red
Yeah,
cover.
that's my great grandfather's book,
Oh,
but it
that's your
has
great grandfather's book.
yeah, so it
Wow.
has my grandfather in the back doing the fast set. So the pictures
Okay.
with the fast set in the back, that's my grandfather.
And I
Yeah. So
have
the
the book that
book's
came out
written by
recent
my, yeah.
called Grandmaster, right?
Yeah,
The recent
yes.
book.
Yeah, that's a translation. That book was
Oh.
written, it's not something that I made up myself. It's so written by the government, the sport department in my hometown. So it was researched. The guy who had, interviewed people, did research, wrote the book, and then I translated it.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
hmm So if you'll forward me the links for those where people can find them, I'll share them in the show notes, the books, and also to your webpage and social media pages so people can get in touch to learn more.
Yeah, you can find my stuff on my website,
Mhm.
alexdongtaichi.com. But also for that book, it's not on there. So, because I don't have a lot of copies. So only people who contact me directly can buy it. So I didn't put it on the website. Yeah.
Before we sign off, I know I'm taking up your whole evening here. Is there something about Tai Chi or proper practice or philosophy that you would like to share now as we at the end of our conversation to share with our listeners?
Yes, I mean, training is important, but also learning is important. A lot of times people think they can just practice on their own, get better. Maybe certain things, and if they work hard, they get stronger, they get better. But there's a lot of things in Tai Chi, like the Tai Chi principles, the subtle things where it's very hard to get by yourself. Again, I've been practicing Tai Chi for 50 years now, and I'm the fourth generation in my family. So sometimes people take learning for granted. Very important. I know not every all the teachers are good, so sometimes people maybe get discouraged. But it's important to find a good teacher who can guide you. But the teacher is not everything. Like I said, you have to practice hard, and also, some student can get it faster than the other. So it also depends on your own ability. So the ability we can't change, but finding a good teacher and practicing more, that's something that we can do, right? So make sure if you want to get good in Tai Chi. You can try it on your own and try to see where you go. But I suggest you find a good teacher and learn, the traditional ways of doing things. It's not just everybody by themselves.
hmm Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sifu Alex Dong, for our conversation today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure,
Very,
Mark. Yeah.
very generous with your time and your information.